The Downton Abbey Exhibition is located in a really unassuming building on West 57th Street in Midtown Manhattan. As you walk along the street, you're not sure you're even going to the right place. And then there it is. There's a huge poster on the side of the wall and the entrance to the building. And we were excited to be there along with lots of other ladies and just a few men who were there. And we entered into the building and showed our tickets, which is actually only $30 each to go in, which didn't seem bad. And after a short introduction, they open the doors and in you go to the Downton Abbey Exhibition. As you walk through the door, you're welcomed by a hologram of Mr. Carson and Mrs. Hughes welcoming you to the Downton Abbey Exhibition. It really feels like you're actually there. There are lots of pictures of all the cast members as you go through the exhibition, but the first and costumes too, but the first room you enter into is the kitchen. Seeing the actual kitchen set from Downton Abbey is really quite something. You can feel like you're there with Mrs. Patmore and Daisy and watching them make all the meals for the Crawley family. They did say that the table had to be raised a little as the actress who played Mrs. Patmore was so short and she would have spent the whole time leaning over. But to see their costumes and the table and the props was just really a fascinating experience. And you could read all the information about the times in the kitchen, and that was part of the interesting part of the exhibition, was that you also got to learn a lot of history about the time during which the film was set in the early 20th century. From the kitchen, you move through to the servants' dining room, where we see, during the Downton Abbey series, so many interactions between all the staff and their conversation and their gossip and socialising that they didn't get to do when they were working upstairs. The long wooden table just reminded me of all those scenes, and they had some of the costumes from Mr. Bates and Anna, and the old Singer sewing machine, which just like the one my grandmother had on the table, and just all very lifelike with the farmhouse hutch with all the plates and cups and saucers on. Of course, one of the most fascinating things in the servants' quarter is the board with all the bells on, where they would ring down from upstairs if they needed anything, with all the names of the rooms. And you can see some of the names are quite unusual, but apparently they are names of actual bedrooms in Highclere Castle, which was the building used as Downton Abbey. So it was fun to stand there and imagine them ringing away. And it was a nice addition that they had a tray with a teapot and cups and saucers when the staff would have a cup of tea when they had a few minutes off, together with an ashtray, which of course I'm sure many of them smoked back in those days. So that was very, very fun to see and imagine the events taking place in that room. From the servants' dining room, it was into Carson's private room and space, where he would polish the silver and decant the wine, and where he would chat over a glass of sherry with Mrs. Hughes. I just loved seeing this room and remember seeing their relationship evolve over the years as they sat by the fire drinking their sherry. All the details that are included are just so fascinating, from the books and the fireplace. Their costumes were there, and the details on the desk of all the items that he used, the keys on Mrs. Hughes's outfit where she could get into all the rooms, and the decanter on the table and the old fashioned telephone. It just really brings the whole show to life. The next area we walked through was a display of many of the evening dresses worn by the ladies of the Crawley family, and to see them and to see how tiny these actresses really are is amazing, and the colours and the fabrics used are just beautiful, and each one has a description of when it was worn and which actress wore it and what the scene was, and you could just really remember them swirling around the rooms in Highclere Castle wearing these gowns, and they're all just truly beautiful and representative of that time and place in England. So these, I just really enjoyed seeing these dresses. The next room had a recreation of the Crawley dining room from Highclere Castle, with the long, splendid dining room table set for one of their huge dinners that they would have with many invited guests. There's my friend Jill, fellow Brit, who went to the exhibition with me, in front of the dining room. It was set just as it would be in those days, meticulously, with the knives and forks and glasses placed just so, and beautiful table settings and all the candles down the centre of the table. You can just hear the banter of the family as they sat there and ate their meals. And there were lots of descriptions of how dinner would be held during those times, where they would talk to one person on the right for a certain amount of time, then it would be time to turn and they would talk to the person on the other side, so that everybody was included in the conversation. There were also then more costumes on display in the dining room, all just beautiful to see, and the china and all just very lovingly recreated and great to see. We were then treated to a recreation of Lady Mary's boudoir, complete with the big bed, the lamps, the pictures on the walls, and the dressing table where she would sit and Anna would brush her hair and do her necklaces and have their many conversations. There was also a nightgown and a robe, and we were shocked to see that she wore those undergarments in the picture there. But seeing pictures from the actual series, it was a very thoughtful recreation and just exactly like Lady Mary's room was in all the scenes she played in there. Throughout the exhibition, you get to see many artifacts and props from the series, including letters written by the characters in the series, watches, jewellery, hat pins, so many things that brought the show alive, desks and all the stationery and everything they used. And it just really makes you remember the series and to see all the things close up to realise how realistic it really all was. And these are all throughout the exhibition. Between the rooms and the costumes, you get to see all these artifacts and information about the cast members and the characters and the history of the time, which makes it even more interesting. Of course, one of the most beloved characters in Downton Abbey was the Dowager Countess Violet Crawley, played by the fantastic Maggie Smith, and they had some of her costumes there that you could so picture her wearing. And then they had put together some clips of her just most classic moments and her quips and her one-liners, which had all the people there standing watching, laughing and remembering some of the fantastic lines that she had in this show. The exhibition is a self-guided tour, and it is on 3 floors with escalators going from one floor to the other, so it is easy to get around, and they managed the crowds very nicely that it wasn't too packed in each area. And on the top floor, the 3rd floor, is a huge collection, or a large collection I should say, of the costumes from the series, all individually beautiful and all seen together, just fantastic. And you can remember the scenes if you're a big fan where they were worn and remember the story. They have quotes also throughout, just the lovely quotes from the series. The hats, of course, which were a big part, all the ladies wearing their hats, and the wedding dresses, all various wedding dresses that were worn through the series by the different Crawley women, actually, and Mrs. Hughes and cast, and what they wore the day they got wedding. So it just brings everything to life, and I think they did just a really great job with different film pieces that you can see and the costumes and the artifacts in the rooms. If you're a big Downton fan, it's definitely worth visiting, and they have extended it due to popular demand, and it will be in New York City until September 3rd this year, so maybe that's a summer trip you should be planning. Well, I hope you enjoyed the slideshow. Thanks for watching. Bye.